Breaking news to bring you after nearly 1 year after Robert Morris and his disgraceful exit from Gateway Church. The church that he founded has now named their new senior pastor. This has been a process, again, that has gone on for nearly a year with the search. We received some updates along the way that Gateway got really close a number of months ago to naming the new senior pastor, but things then fell apart. We don't know exactly what that was, who that individual was, or what made them change their mind, but the announcement has now come on Sunday, May 25th, 2025. Gateway Church announced who the new megachurch pastor will be. So who is it? Where do they come from? What is their background? What about their previous church? So there are some things that you need to know as I was preparing to do my research to bring you this breaking news today. So we're going to dive in. We're going to talk all about it. And I, of course, definitely want to hear from you guys, especially if you either attend Gateway Church or you attend the church that, well, the new pastor is coming from. There's a lot, again, to dive into. We will talk about it in just a second. But before we do that, I, of course, want to welcome all of you to Not By Sight News. Yes, a blind Christian guy here reporting to you, reminding you as always that we walk by faith, not by sight. For someone like me, that's kind of my only option. If you guys could, I need you to do me a huge favor. Please hit that like button for me. We, of course, have a likes goal on these videos, trying to get at least 500 likes on each video that we do. We unfortunately went 1 for 3 again yesterday. Only got the likes goal on one video. We got really close, though. So we're making steps towards getting the goal on a more consistent basis. I have faith we'll get there. You guys can help me, though. Again, it just takes a quick second to smash that like button. Also, please share the video around. That too will help us get more traction on it and get it out there more in the algorithm, in the recommended section, to a wider audience so that we can further expose the church corruption, call out the wolves in the pulpit, and protect the vulnerable. If you could do me one more additional favor, just double check your notifications. Make sure you have them put into the all position so that you're not missing a single video that I am putting out. Especially if you are a newer subscriber, when you first sub to a channel, they're going to default your notifications to the personalized option. So you have to go in there, manually change that over to all, and then you should be good to go. Thank you guys for that, and I hope you are all having a blessed day. So Gateway Church made the announcement again during Sunday morning service on May 25th, and at the same time, an announcement was made at another church. Their pastors announcing their departure and the fact that they are going over now to Gateway. I want to point out to you again that it was last June 2024 when Robert Morris had resigned his position from Gateway after Cindy Clemishire came forward with her story of being, mistreated by Morris at the time that she was only 12 years old. Since then, we have seen a lot go down. Gateway has lost a lot of its members. Their giving has been down. I talked about that last November. There was leaked audio that came out from a staff meeting. They talked about how giving was down at Gateway anywhere from 35 to 40%. I mean, that's huge, right? But even before that, we had the independent investigation from Haynes and Boone. They went in there to try to find out who exactly knew that the age of Cindy Clemishire was only 12 years old when Robert Morris was mistreating her. Well, what did we see from that investigation? Multiple Gateway elders and also Gateway staff were terminated because the investigation found out that multiple elders and staff did know that Cindy was only 12 years old. And remember the story that Morris told for years, that he had an inappropriate relationship with a young lady. That was the narrative. No one knew, except, again, those close to him, that Cindy was only 12. And I covered the background and how Cindy had tried to get $50,000 from Morris and his attorney about 20 years ago. They said, we'll give you $25,000. We'll make you sign an NDA. Thankfully, Cindy Clemishire did not go for that at all. And we've been talking about this. Hey, if Morris would have just paid the $50K and had his attorney not blamed Cindy for what happened to her, maybe this whole mess would have never happened. But they decided to do what they did. And what did it then lead to? In March of this year, 2025, the indictment came against Robert Morris, something that we never thought we were going to see, right? I mean, I was skeptical. I was like, sometimes these big megachurch leaders, they get away with stuff, right? There was always talk about the statute of limitations, and we were saying how there's no way they're going to get this guy, except they did. And it was by a frontier era law, and because Morris was not a resident of Oklahoma, he was a resident of Texas at the time, and he was coming into Oklahoma to stay with Cindy's family, doing these horrible things to her. They were able to get him on that in the 5-count indictment. Of course, he posted bond. He made his first court appearance on May 9th, and now the preliminary hearing is scheduled for September 4th. Of course, Morris pleaded not guilty to all of those, and we're going to see how this goes once we get to trial. In addition to that, Morris right now is in a heated, I want to say it's a feud really, but a heated feud right now legally. There's lawsuits between him and Gateway Church over Morris's retirement package. I talked about this in a video about a little over a week ago or so, and how Morris was demanding upon his, exit from Gateway. He said he was forced to resign. He says they made me resign or I was going to be fired. So he's playing victim in this, said that he but he had asked up front in a meeting from 2014. They were supposed to give me $1 million up front upon my exit from Gateway. When I, resigned, retired, it would all be a part of the package. But not only that, Morris would receive $800,000 a year thereafter until he turned 70. Now he's 63 now. After he turned 70, he would receive another $600,000 a year for the rest of his life. If he happened to pass away before that, the money would then go over to his wife, Debbie Morris. I want to point out to you, before all of this, Robert Morris was worth $117 million. He needed a lot more, I guess, right? Probably to pay for all the legal expenses for all these other lawsuits, right? What else is going on? And I got to give you this background because it's important for you to know what the new senior pastor is going to be walking into here, okay? Very important, and there may be a lot of people that don't know about this information. So, in addition to that, there's another lawsuit. There's a lot of lawsuits going everywhere, right? But there's another one going on. And by the way, Gateway said they're not going to pay Morris a dime that he's asking for. Morris tried to escalate this to arbitration while Gateway claimed that they were trying to work things out through mediation. Gateway said that they have no recollection of a meeting from 2014 with Morris making these demands, but they also highlighted basically a morality clause here in the manner of which Morris had resigned, and because now of the indictment, well, he's not, he shouldn't be getting all that money, basically, right? Why are they going to be giving all that money over to somebody who now has criminal charges against him? Gateway also put in some demands of their own, wanting Morris to come out and publicly admit that Cindy was only 12 when the mistreatment started. He has not yet done that. Now, I don't see him doing that, because if he does, it's probably going to jeopardize the whole case here in an upcoming trial. So I don't expect Morris to be doing that. Gateway said, though, that if he did, they might consider some sort of a retirement package for him then. But look, the guy may end up doing prison time. So that money ain't going to really do him much. So that's going on with that lawsuit. But then there's of course, the other lawsuit between Gateway and former, and I believe even still some current congregants who are demanding, this is all based off the Robert Morris money back guarantee for the tithes. Okay, I've been talking about this and how they called into question how Gateway had promised 15% of tithes were going to be going towards global missions. These former members allege, and this was also through a whistleblower back around 2011, 2014, in that period, who was overseeing the finances, claimed there were multiple discrepancies that showed, in fact, that no, 15% of the tithes and offerings were not going to global missions. So the question became, where did that money go? That whistleblower, after bringing these concerns up to other leaders at Gateway and even Robert Morris, ended up resigning because he basically said that if they're not going to address this, if they're not going to fix this, I'll tender my resignation. Morris allegedly told them, well, your good is gone, man. You can go ahead and leave. That's very concerning. Now, the members involved here in the suit against Gateway are claiming that they're not just trying to get the money back for themselves, but they actually want to see it go towards the missions that it was intended to. Now, since then, we have had a couple of other names on the lawsuit, other Gateway leaders. Some of them now have been taken off of the lawsuit. Morris, however, of course, still remains on there with Gateway. They filed motions to dismiss. They're trying to claim the whole ecclesiastical governance structure and how there's no actual contract, a written contract between Morris and the congregants about the money back guarantee. But there are clips out there, I've played them before here on my channel, of Morris talking about how, if you're not satisfied with your money after 1 year, I'll give you the money back. I mean, he preached that sermon at Willow Creek Community Church about how, and it was in February of 2022, he preached that sermon talking about how, in the 20 plus years that I've been, at Gateway, I've never had anybody in my church ever ask me for my money back. Well, you got a lot of people that are asking for it back now. And Morris is trying to claim, and his attorneys are trying to say that, again, there's no verbal contract. He's not bound by that. He even has, I believe it's First Liberty Institute who's representing him in this, and they're worried about other pastors who might have to be held accountable. And here's the thing. If you're a pastor, if you're making some sort of a claim, I'm going to give you the money back, and you don't do it, you're not a very honorable person. Bottom line, don't make promises that you can't. I mean, you guys know the phrase, right? I'm not going to say it, but don't be making those sorts of promises if you're not going to actually, commit to it. Bottom line, maybe he never thought somebody was going to ask for their money back. And also, I do wonder if at any point people did come up and ask him for the money back, and he just didn't mention it, right? Just sweep it under the rug. Multiple lawsuits as well by other allegations in Gateway Church over the last year. I've talked about those as well, involving people in the youth group being, mistreated, other staff being mistreated by other pastors. We had another resignation of a Gateway pastor that occurred last summer as well for more inappropriate behavior. So I bring all this up again, and we'll lead into now, with the news. There is a lot here, okay? There is a big mess that has happened at Gateway, and I always say this, it starts at the top, right? Morris was at the top there, and for years, all sorts of nonsense was coming out from that church, and it was, again, a wide array of things. The money thing, the prosperity gospel preaching, the money back guarantee for your tithes, the mistreatment of individuals, inappropriate behavior, big issues here, right? So now, with all of that being said, we get the announcement that Gateway Church is now replacing Robert Morris, one megachurch pastor, with another megachurch pastor. And this is Daniel Floyd. Daniel Floyd is a megachurch pastor from Virginia. He is pastored, and he founded, along with his wife Tammy, they founded Life Point Church back in 2005. Okay, so the last 20 years. And it's based in Fredericksburg, Virginia, but since 2005, it has now expanded to 5 campuses. So it's another big, another big church here, big mega church. The announcements came, it was basically dual announcements on Sunday morning, May 25th. First, let me talk about Life Point Church. There's about they spoke for about 9-10 minutes in the closing of the sermon during Life Point Church's service Sunday, May 25th. You had Daniel and Tammy Floyd, they both got up there together, and they talked about how God was calling them into a new season. We often hear this, right? New season, new direction, common lingo from pastors in these sorts of situations. Daniel Floyd talked about how he was not job hunting, that this was not something that he was seeking. He was not trying to leave Life Point Church, nothing like that at all. He talked about how back in January of this year, so like 4 or 5 months ago, he gets a call from Gateway elder Trey Wilbanks. And Trey Wilbanks had asked him, would you consider becoming Gateway's new senior pastor? And this was something that Floyd said that he had to really think about and consider. He talked it over with his wife. He talked it over with other elders of Life Point Church and other overseers, other spiritual mentors. He talked about how he had a lot of time in prayer and he was asking the Lord to, make it relevant to him. Is this what you want? And he said that, day by day, week by week, month by month, he felt the Lord actually affirming that decision for him to go over to Gateway and, start this new process. Now, Wilbanks told Floyd that if you come here, if you accept this job, know that there is a lot of repair work that needs to be done. And again, that goes to just everything that I just told you. This is what Daniel Floyd will be inheriting as the new senior pastor of Gateway Church. He's going to be inheriting a big mess. Now, I've talked about this for the better part of a year. I said, whoever comes in here to Gateway Church, this is going to be a big task. And I'm sure that there are multiple people who turned the job down, right? We know about one that they spoke about who they said they had the person locked up and then they backed out, okay? So it's a huge task. And I've said as well that they might want to consider rebranding altogether with Gateway. Now, I already talked about how the church in Houston, Gateway Houston, which is run by Robert Morris's daughter and son-in-law, they rebranded in July of last year to Newlands Church. I mean, they got the stank of the Gateway name off them real quick. They did not want to be tied with it at all anymore. So I said that if a new senior pastor, not or if, but really, but when that would occur, would they consider rebranding Gateway altogether because of this mess? Now, you got to think. Now, I don't know the exact number of members that Life Point has, but Gateway has been a declining congregation. So he's coming in here to take over, a church with declining members, all the shenanigans with Morris, all of the lawsuits, right? That's a lot for anybody to handle. But they said in their announcement at Life Point Church that this is something that they are going to take on. Now, one thing to note here, that unlike with Life Point Church, where both Daniel and Tammy Floyd are listed as the church's senior pastors, that does not look to be the case with Gateway. It appears as though it's only going to be Daniel Floyd who is going to be the senior pastor, listed as the senior pastor of Gateway. We do not know yet what his wife Tammy's role, official role, title is going to be yet with Gateway Church. So that's something interesting to keep an eye on as we move forward here. We know that in the past, the Gateway promised that with the new senior pastor, there would be more accountability, right? They were not going to have a structure any longer where the senior pastor had all of the power, right? Look at with Morris, there was going to be a completely new structure. We also know that Gateway was going to be entering into a partnership with the ECFA, which is the Evangelical Council for Financial Accountability, to keep better track of the finances. And not every church is involved in this. So I said at the time, all right, that's a good move here by Gateway for them to go ahead and do that. I'm sure we're going to learn more in the days, the weeks, the months ahead. Now, also during Life Point's service on Sunday, they mentioned how this is going to be not something that happens right away. In fact, the Floyd said, we'll be preaching back here next week. They also said that they already have their replacement. So again, there's a lot of people now that are, being replaced. So, they're going to be leaving, going to Gateway. Who's LifePoint's new pastor is going to be? They talked about that how on next Sunday, it'll be June 1st. They told everybody, come back. We will be announcing the new senior pastor or pastors of LifePoint Church on that day and when that official transition will be taking place. They got a big, standing ovation from everybody there at the church. They were both, that being Daniel and Tammy, were both very emotional. They were crying during this announcement, but also again talking about how they are excited for the new challenge. Now, at the same time, let me go back over to Gateway Church now. Gateway, after making the announcement, they played a pre-recorded video statement from the Floyds with their official, welcome to Gateway Church. And they talked about how they're very excited to be meeting everybody, to be pastoring this church, and, looking forward to doing great things with the Lord in the future. It was a welcome video, and it got, people responded to it favorably as well. So when is this all going to officially take place? According to Gateway, the Floyds will be starting sometime in August. So it's still going to be a couple months. Obviously, they're going to be moving from Virginia to Texas. So they're going to find a new house and all of that. It's going to take them a couple of months. So later in the summer, some point in August, they will officially take the reins. And once we figure out the exact date and all of that, I'll give you guys another update. I'm sure I'll have more updates on this in the days and in the weeks ahead as we find out a lot more about what to expect. Something else here that we also learned was that on the same day, Sunday, May 25th, was the last Sunday service, the sermon for Max Lucado, who has been there as the interim pastor for really the last year. Both him and Joachim Luntwitz, they stepped in as interim teaching pastors for Gateway while Gateway was continuing their search for the brand new senior pastor. But yeah, Lucado, last sermon, Sunday, May 25th. Now, questions still about where Gateway goes for the remainder of the summer. I'm only just assuming this. We're going to get more, guest pastors and preachers coming in for the duration of the time until you have the Floyds come in there and step in on a permanent basis. Now, Daniel Floyd was there at Gateway back in March. He actually preached a sermon on prayer. And interestingly enough, I believe it was the Sunday after Robert Morris had been indicted. And so, who knew at that time that was the guy that was going to be leading Gateway going forward. Gateway seemed very excited here about Floyd coming in as the new senior pastor. Trey Wilbanks talked about it. He also gave an interview to the Dallas Morning News talking about how, again, this is a new chapter for Gateway. But I do want to point out to you something that is worth noting here, okay? And I bring this up because it's something that definitely needs to be said. I try to bring you guys as much news into these stories as I possibly can. There's a lot of people that are excited about the Floyds coming in, but I do want to point out to you that there have been for quite a while a lot of ties between the Floyds and Gateway Church, okay? So this wasn't as if Gateway selected somebody that, had nothing to do with them. They weren't tied to them in any way at all. There is a familiarity here between the Floyds and Gateway, and let me explain to you now why that is. In addition to being the founders and the pastors of LifePoint Church, you also have Daniel and Tammy Floyd. They sit on the leaders team for the Association of Related Churches, also known as ARC. Now, for those of you that are listening to me right now and you're saying, what is that? Not by sight. What is ARC? What is the Association for Related Churches? Some of you may know exactly what I'm talking about. I've talked about ARC for a number of years now. They are a very, very large church planting organization here in the United States. And they are also one that has been plagued by all sorts of shenanigans and pastors with inappropriate behavior. Almost every single ARC-related church has had some sort of nonsense and shenanigans going on in it now for quite a long time. Now, as I mentioned, they sit on the leaders team for ARC. And Robert Morris, remember, was also an overseer for ARC's flagship church, which is Church of the Highlands, located there in Alabama, which, of course, was led by Chris Hodges. Chris Hodges, a couple of months ago, announced that he was actually taking a step back as the senior pastor, and they had announced a new pastor of their own, because again, there's been so much drama and shenanigans, inappropriate behavior, fallen pastors. I've said before, Chris Hodges, he built that huge $4-something million retreatment facility for restored pastors, the pastors that get caught up in all the inappropriate behavior. I'm actually surprised Morris isn't there to be, but he built this facility for pastors to, who had fallen, right? Had moral failures. They love saying moral failures and all these other issues. Go to this huge retreat. It's like a huge vacation, like a resort, right? They go there but they'll get refreshed. They'll be supposedly, taught the word and counseled and all of this. So Morris was an overseer for Church of the Highlands. And then, of course, they distanced themselves from Morris after all the allegations came out with him last year. So Gateway has hosted many ARC conferences before in the past, right there at Gateway. So Gateway, again, very much affiliated with ARC over the years. And when I saw here that both Daniel and Tammy Floyd sit on the leader team of ARC, I said, uh-oh, that might be an issue. Again, a lot of close ties here, but it's just too much drama, right? Too much of the inappropriate behavior and the mistreatment allegations. And, the fact that they recruited them from, the ARC organization, I don't know, guys. I'm just letting you know. I'm just reporting to you about these things. Again, I'm sure a lot of you never heard of ARC, right? Association for Related Churches, and all of the various issues that those churches have had over the years, and the whole retreatment center for the fallen pastors. It's something, right? So we're going to see. We're going to see how they do going forward. And by the way, a lot of ARC churches have also shuttered their doors even in recent years because of all the drama. And I know that Taverner Smith, who was the pastor of Venue Church, I covered him. God, it's like going back maybe 4 or 5 years now with all of his allegations. And Venue Church just, you want to talk about a fall from grace in a mega church that was one of the fastest growing churches probably about a decade ago, until all of the issues with Taverner Smith came up. It was something else. You can go back on my channel and watch some of those old videos. So is this, as we wrap it up here, is this a good move for Gateway? Is this going to help them to recover and bounce back? And I do want to hear from everybody in the comment section. We always encourage everybody to get involved here in the discussion, as it does help the video to perform better with more engagement. Will the Floyds be able to turn this around? Remember, Trey Wilbanks did say that there's a lot of repair work that you're going to have to do. This is inheriting a huge mess. And I'm not saying that, everything that happened at Gateway, it's not Daniel Floyd's fault, right? But has it gotten to the point now where it's beyond repair? Is it beyond repair? Will a rebranding help? Will that help with a brand new senior pastor? Because look, Gateway said this. They said this a number of weeks ago after Morris had made the first court appearance, and I believe they even said it after the news of the indictment, that they would no longer be providing any updates on the Robert Morris trial and situation. They are now wanting to completely divorce themselves from Robert Morris altogether. So that being said, does that also mean, because the Gateway name, you guys know, I've been saying this for a year, Gateway Church is Robert Morris and Robert Morris is Gateway Church. So if they want a complete separation, does that mean with Daniel and Tammy Floyd now taking the reins, does Gateway rebrand to a completely different name as part of a bigger strategy long term to rebuild this church organization and get it back to something similar, at least close to what it used to be? You guys let me know down below in the comments section. I appreciate you guys all tuning in today. Don't forget, again, our likes goal. We are trying to get at least 500 likes on each video that we do. Can you guys help me with that? It just takes a quick second to smash that like button. Also, please share the video around. That too will help us get more traction, get it out more in the algorithm in the recommended section to a wider audience so that we can further expose the church corruption, call out the wolves in the pulpit, and protect the vulnerable. If you really enjoy and appreciate the work of Not By Sight News and you would like to see this great work continue, would you consider making a generous donation to support and fund our operation here? I always say I'm not here to promote to you a false prosperity gospel. We just ask that if you enjoy and appreciate the work being done, you find it important, you would think about giving to us. You would also be helping us out in what has been a very tumultuous 8-9 months for myself and my wife with her various health issues, including suffering a stroke, a clotting disorder, lupus, and even Bell's palsy. It's been a very rough go. I've certainly felt the weight of all of this too, with the stress, the fear, the anxiety. There's so much we're doing our best to power through, but I can tell you that in the aftermath, the medical bills for all this are not cheap. So if you all feel led by the Lord to help us out, maybe you just enjoy the work that we're doing here overall, and you would like to bless us because of that, we have multiple ways that you can contribute. One of those is by going over to our GoFundMe. We set up a GoFundMe to help out. The link to that is in the description of this video and all videos. You can also become a monthly partner with us for as little as just $5 a month by going over to patreon.com/notbysightnews. That link also in the description. And then finally, you can just hit the super thanks button on the YT video here. Although I will tell you that if you choose that option, YT does take 30% for themselves. So if you do want to make sure that we get the majority of your generous gift, then GoFundMe or Patreon will be your best options. And we, again, thank you so much for the support. We cannot do this without you. What I want to do right now, something I do on all these videos, and that's end this video on hope. It's part of my ministry outreach. This is an altar call. I've been doing this on my videos since 2016. No matter what it is that I am discussing in the church, we always want to give people the opportunity to receive Christ as Savior. That being said, anybody watching now, if you are somebody who has not yet received Jesus as Lord and Savior and you would like to do so, I want to lead you in a prayer to do that right now. This is a prayer you could do in your own words, but I will give you the steps you need to bring it before the Lord today. First thing you want to do right off the top, acknowledge you are a sinner. That is something that we all are. The good news is that God gave his only son, Jesus Christ, to die on that cross for the sins of all the world, as he died and rose again for you and me. He paid the cost. What you have to do is repent of your sin. That means to turn from sin, not just to say you're sorry and then jump back to your old ways, but to actually turn from sin, which are those lifestyles, patterns, habits, behaviors, things in your life that go against the Word of God. If you humbly go before the Lord, though, and ask him to forgive you, he'll wipe your sin away. The Bible says he doesn't remember it any longer. And then you invite Jesus into your life to be your Lord and Savior. When you do that, you become born again, a child of God. You will have eternal life. Trust me when I tell you there is no greater decision that you will ever make than the one you do to give your life to Christ. And I pray you make that decision today. Again, more info down below. Thank you all again so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. I'll be back with more. You guys take care. Please be safe out there. God bless each and every single one of you. And I'll talk with you soon.